Guys are dealing with it well. I know our coaches are too, and we'll be excited to get back to work now after this pause.
COVID-19 continues to delay Temple sports, but it's not stopping us.
OwlSports Update is not live, but it does start right now. Hello and welcome back to OwlSports Update. Technically alongside Jackson Neal, I am Brooklyn Vaughn. It's been a while, but we are excited to be back.
The majority of Temple's fall sports have been postponed and most classes moved online, but we're still here to give you shows every week virtually as we look for sports news that is reality. One team in action is the football team here at Temple, whose first matchup is about 3 weeks away.
Just last week, head coach Rod Carey announced that the Owls game against Navy, originally scheduled for September 26th, has been postponed until October 10th. Due to Philadelphia guidelines, the team has been limited to scrimmage 10 to 12 plays per practice. Carey, on the other hand, believes that the team will need at least 50 to 60 plays in order to be ready against Navy. Perhaps the team's reasoning for postponing this game has something to do with Navy's 55-3 loss suffered against BYU. Navy was not prepared to play this one, and they blame this one being under the same practice restrictions as Temple. But last week's bad news has made way for some better news this week. Just days after postponing the opener versus Navy, Rod Carey announced that the city of Philadelphia has approved his team's practice plan. So instead of being restricted to 50 people and only running 10 to 12 plays per practice, practice is now back to normal. And Carey says he's excited to get the pads cracking again.
I want to play. The kids want to play as fast as we could here. But with the restrictions that we're under from the city and the guidelines, moving it back, it's kind of the last chip that we had to play as far as getting the team ready to play and getting that time back on our side here. So, I think we're all a little frustrated.
State and city officials have announced that no fans will be allowed at Lincoln Financial Field until further notice. In a statement, Temple said it supports the tough decision that the officials had to make considering the COVID-19 pandemic. Season ticket holders for the Owls can either receive full refunds, get credit towards the 2021 season tickets, or donate the money to the Temple Owl Club to support the university's student athletes. The Cherry and White's first home football game is scheduled for October 17th against the University of Southern Florida. Temple says it will continue to explore the possibility of in-fan attendance until then.
When camp started, there was uncertainty across the board for Temple, from player eligibility to facility limitations, and there were, of course, some questions as to whether there would be games played at all. Here's OwlSports Update's Tahir Hood to tell us more.
Thanks, guys. The coronavirus has forced all of us to change the way we conduct business, even how we as sportscasters report the news. These changes have also affected how this Temple football team operates on a day-to-day basis.
It's the challenge within the game. This challenge is very serious. It's the difference between playing and not playing, staying healthy and getting sick. That's Temple football in 2020.
Around here, we're getting tested once or twice a week. We're, making sure that we're following all the right protocols. I think our training staff has been absolutely unbelievable with, keeping us in line, doing our nightly surveys on if we have any symptoms, checking our temperature every time we come in the facility, getting us tested once or twice a week.
Even in the midst of a global pandemic, the coaching staff isn't distracted by the adjustments.
Good job.
Even if that means preparing for a season with limited time on the field in exchange for more time in the weight room and film room.
It doesn't matter if we are in COVID or not, or I just worry about the things I can control. But what can you get better at today? You can get better at running your routes. You can get better at your assignments. You can get better at our checks. So let's focus on what we can do.
Players and coaches alike both agree that they'd rather be spending less time on Zoom
And more time here at the facilities.
This is the first time I know in my life that this time of the year has came around, and we don't know if we're going to have a season or not. So I know us here on 10th and Diamond, all the work that we've been putting in, we want to go out and play.
And so far, so good. Even if it's taking longer than anyone would have expected, the season opener against Navy is still on the schedule. Reporting for OwlSports Update, I'm Tyre Hood.
Thanks, Tahir. As it stands now, Temple will play 8 games, all in conference. If you take a look now at the AAC preseason media poll, there isn't a ton of optimism about Temple's future success in those 8 games. The favorite this year, the UCF Knights, raking in 10 first-place votes. They are followed by Cincinnati, Memphis, SMU, Navy, Tulane, and Houston. The Owls were placed at number 8, coming ahead of Tulsa, East Carolina, and USF. That's a low mark for a Temple team that hasn't been below 500 in conference since 2013. To talk more about this ranking, which may be a bit controversial to Owls fans, we bring in Inside the Nest reporter Josh Safran. Josh, let's get right to it. Do you think the Owls deserve to be that low in the poll?
Well, thank you guys for having me on. And I don't think that the Owls deserve to be that low in the poll. That being said, it is tricky in the AAC because it's kind of split into 3 tiers, the top, middle, and bottom, and Temple's right in the middle of that tier. You got teams like Houston, you got teams like Tulane, and with Tulane, you kind of know what you're going to get. They're like a 500 team. They're just trying to make a bowl. Houston, on the other hand, they just lost their star quarterback. So I'm really thinking that Temple returning Anthony Russo with a year in the offense, returning that wide receiver corps, which I think might be the strongest in all of the AAC. I think Temple can certainly outperform their eighth spot in the AAC. That being said, I do not think it's unfair. I do not think it's a ridiculous spot to have them preseason.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to say that I think that they're sitting pretty well at spot number 8 right now. Like you said, that middle tier of the conference, it's really tough. They're neck and neck with teams like Navy, Tulane, Houston. Even though you're right, they lost their star quarterback. I think Temple, if anything, this gives them a little chip on their shoulder, right? It's more fun for their fans to watch them have a little bit more to prove this upcoming season.
Yeah, I would certainly have to say that I expected Temple to be a little higher in this poll. I looked at a team like Navy. Now, we obviously saw them lose 55-3 in the season opener. But even before that, I expected Temple to be above them in the poll. So I think it's a little low for the Owls, but I have to agree with you guys. They're sitting right there in that middle tier. But let's turn our attention to the top of the AAC. Interested to hear who you guys think are some of the people that might be winning the conference this season.
All right, and I'll take it, I'll run, and I will go right off the bat and say UCF, and I'm confident in that because they are currently ranked number 21 in the country with this AP poll. They went 10-3 last season. They have a stud in their sophomore quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. I'm excited to see what they do this year. I think definitely they are the contender. They have 10 votes, 10 first-place votes in that preseason media poll. So, everyone's watching the Knights this season. I'm going to take them to win the conference.
I'm going to have to go with a team that's right up there with UCF, though a little lower than them, with Cincinnati. They've posted back-to-back 11-win seasons, and now with 10 starters returning, that experience is really going to come into play when it matters most into November when the AAC championship is up for grabs. I'm going to have to go with the Bearcats.
Well, I can't disagree too much with you guys. You got UCF always on top, Cincinnati always on top. I think it's time for a dark horse. That's right. I'm going with the Pony Express of SMU. And get used to hearing this name, Shane Buechele. This guy was 6th in the NCAA last year in passing yards. This guy was the freshman quarterback for the Texas Longhorns, beat Notre Dame, 10th-ranked Notre Dame in his first game, and he's coming back with all 5 offensive linemen returning. It's such a weird year this year. I think the skilled players like Shane Buechele is going to be enough to have what it takes to win the AAC. Now, all that being said, I have one question for you guys myself. What's holding back the Owls from getting into this top tier? And is there anything that they can do? You guys have anything on that?
Well, certainly, I think something they have to look at with Temple and holding them back is they only have 4 defensive starters returning, losing all those guys to the NFL. Quincy Roche, he transferred after being an All-American. So I think that's definitely going to hold them back on the defensive side of the ball. And then Anthony Russo's decision-making. It's going to be a second year in the offense. So if he can get that decision-making better than what we've seen it so far, I think that Owls could then maybe surprise some people and make a jump into that top tier.
Yeah, and you know what, Jackson? I'm going to have to say exactly what you said. Again, that's exactly what I was thinking. With the loss of these guys, to the NFL, to other schools, transferring in and out. But you know what? Rod Carey has been adamant that these young guys that he has on his team right now practicing, he has high expectations for them too, to come in and fill these big shoes. So with that being said, I feel like not much is holding the Owls back from that top tier teams. And it'll be really exciting to see these guys moving forward this year. But with that being said, Josh Safran, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you next week.
This preseason, 3 players have been awarded with a single-digit jersey for being the toughest players on and off the field. Safety Amir Tyler moved from number 25 to number 3, wide receiver Jaden Blue switches from number 18 to number 5, and cornerback Christian Braswell goes from number 14 to number 2. Elsewhere, wideout Randall Jones was rewarded with jersey number 7 last preseason, but this year has decided to make the switch to number 0 after college football opened up that number to wear in games. Currently, numbers 4 and 9 are still up for grabs. Let's bring in OwlSports Update's Lindsay Mopper, who took a look at the new single-digit Owls.
Thanks, Jackson. With a new season comes new numbers. Jaden Blue, Amir Rice, and Christian Braswell all proved themselves to be Temple tough and sat down to discuss their ambition and their new roles for this upcoming season. Only the toughest of Temple tough are awarded single-digit jerseys. This summer, redshirt junior Christian Braswell joined that select group as he upgraded to take over Isaiah Wright's single digit, number 2, after being deemed Temple tough by his teammates and coaches.
It was crazy, man. That whole day was just, amazing. Like I said, just being in that category and, with those people that got single digits.
The difference between Braswell in 2019 and 2020 isn't as much his size. It's more about the experience he's gained as a starter for most of last season. It's not only earned him a single digit, but he's now on the AAC preseason all-conference team.
Just his confidence. I think that there's no substitution for game reps, and he got a lot of them last year, and he is a very, very confident person right now.
In 2019, Braswell racked up 40 tackles, 2 interceptions, and broke up 13 passes in his 2 seasons with the Owls.
He's a single digit, and he's a single digit for a reason, and he knows the responsibility that comes with being a single digit.
Earn a single digit because of my hard work and my hard work on and off the field. It's a crazy feeling. It was unbelievable.
Braswell will take the field wearing his new number 2 jersey for what he hopes will be 8 games this season, starting against Navy. Reporting from Edberg Olson Hall, I'm Lindsay Mopper, OwlSports Update. Christian Braswell is eager to get back on the field after being stuck in quarantine for these past few months. Compiling a total of 40 tackles last season, Braswell is looking forward to building on his success as number 2.
Life after Temple has been very kind to the football program. 26 former Owls made it onto Week 1 NFL rosters this past weekend, which sets a program record. Only 16 schools nationwide currently have more representation in the league. Temple now has the most players in the NFL than any other non-Power 5 school. Out of the 26 players, 7 were brought to the Carolina Panthers by former Temple head coach Matt Rule. And in the NFC East, all 4 teams will have at least one Owl. Sean Bradley, of course, is staying on Broad Street, but trading the cherry and white in for Eagles green.
And over on Twitter this week, we asked you if you think the AAC football season will be cut short by COVID-19. While the majority of responses were optimistic that Temple can finish out its season, there still is some doubt among the people that voted. 44% don't see the Owls playing in all 8 conference games.
That will do it for our first virtual edition of OwlSports Update for this semester. Don't forget to follow us on social media at OwlSports Update to stay updated.
For Brooklyn Vaughn and the entire OwlSports Update crew, I'm Jackson Neal. See you next week.